Hi, my name is Katie from Lady Red Crafting, and today's video is all about crafting snowmans. So without further ado, let's jump right into craft number 1. So we're going to start out with this wall shelf I found at the Dollar Tree, and we're not going to use the hanger for this, we'll save that aside. And I'm going to take some antique wax from Waverly, and we're going to paint a nice coat of wax over the top of this shelf. And then we'll just wipe everything down with a baby wipe. And we'll repeat this on the back side as well. And you want to make sure this is really dry before we start our next step. So I'm using my heat tool just to make sure all of our wax is dried. Next, I grab my Waverly chalk paint in the color Plaster, and we're going to dry brush this over the top of that wax. And we're going to do this on both sides of the board. So this month, I'm participating in a wonderful playlist hosted by Crafts Unleashed by Robin and Craftastic DIYs. These wonderful ladies are linked down in my description box below. Please check out their channels, and I've linked the playlist as well, so please check out all the talented creators that put so much time and effort into this snowman challenge. So now that our paint has dried, I'm going to take this fabric square that I found at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to cut this in half. And taking 1/2 of the fabric, we're going to wrap that around the top piece of this board. And this will be a little bit too much fabric, so what I do is I make sure I get the front side of the board the way that I want it, and I'm going to fold it in half on the back. And I'm going to cut any of the excess fabric off, and we're going to use our hot glue gun and glue this fabric to the back side of the board. And now that everything is glued into place, we're going to flip the board over. And once we have the board flipped over, you can remove any excess strings. And next, we're going to scrunch together the top part of the fabric. And using some twine, we're going to wrap that around the top part and just tie a knot in the back of the fabric. Next, I grabbed some ribbon, and this ribbon is about 1 inch wide. And I had gotten this ribbon at Walmart for the fall season, and I had just a little bit left. And I thought this would fit perfectly with our little snowman as his scarf. So we just wrap that around the board, and I'm going to hot glue that scarf right into place. And once you're satisfied with your scarf, let's work on our snowman's face. And I'm a little bit nervous about freehanding a face on our snowman, so I am going to go ahead and kind of draw this out with a pencil, so I feel a little more confident in painting our snowman. And since my snowman is more of a rustic snowman, I'm going to use my truffle paint, which is more of a darker brown paint from Waverly Chalk, for the eyes and the mouth. And then for the nose, I'm using the pumpkin Waverly Chalk paint. So I'm in the Pacific Northwest, and we don't get a lot of snow on this side of the mountains. So I don't get to make very many snowmans in real life. We're lucky if we get one good snowfall in the year. So where are you watching from? And do you get a lot of snow in your neck of the woods? Please let me know in the comments below. And now that our snowman face is dry, I want to add some cheeks. And what I'm using here is actually a lip liner pencil, and I'm just drawing 2 little circles for his cheeks. I grab a cotton swab, and I'm just going to make small circles over the top of the makeup that I drew onto our snowman's face. And this is just going to give him some rosy cheeks. If you don't want to use makeup, you could also use chalk, or I've seen people use crayons as well. So those are some other options you could do for the rosy cheeks. Next, I'm going to cut a little piece of fabric from our scrap fabric from earlier. And I'm going to just trim the twine at the top of our hat. And I'm just using the smaller piece of fabric and tying that around the top of the hat to make it look more like a beanie. And now our handsome snowman is ready to display. I think he'll work wonderful on a shelf as a leaner. Craft number 2. So I found these beautiful signs in the home decor section at the Dollar Tree, and I thought these would make a really good piece for a garland. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start by deconstructing this piece. So to deconstruct this piece, I did have to twist the pieces around, break the hot glue that was attaching it to that metal rod in the center there. And for those stubborn pieces, I did use a Phillips screwdriver to just pry them off. And I like to do things in odd numbers, so I ended up needing 2 signs so I could get 5 pieces to make 1 garland. Let's grab our sander. I use a zip sander, but a sanding block would work just fine. And I'm just going to sand down the letters that are on these pieces so that nothing is raised, so when I paint over them, we won't see them. I also went ahead and sanded the sides of these pieces just to take any of that hot glue or glue that was still on them, so everything was nice and clean. Now I placed these on a paintable surface, and to keep them from moving around, I'm using some painter's tape underneath each block just to help stabilize everything. Now let's grab our Waverly chalk paint in the color white and go ahead and paint a nice coat over the tops of all of these blocks. And I want this to be really bright white, so we're going to paint 2 coats of paint. So I had this macrame rope from the Dollar Tree in the color gray, and well, my dog got into it, and let's just say it's a little bit of a tangled mess, but we were able to untangle it and use it for this craft. So we're going to start by just hot gluing the back of the rope to the back side of the block, and then we're going to wrap this rope around the top triangle portion of the block, and we'll do a single wrap and then add another little bit of hot glue, and we'll continue doing it till we get all the way up to the top. And at the very top of this block, we just go ahead and kind of do a little coil at the top with some hot glue and then tap that down, and it looks like a little beanie hat. And with the back side of a paintbrush, I'm using some black acrylic paint, and I'm just going to put some dots on here to make eyes for our snowman. And next, using the color pumpkin and Waverly chalk paint, I'm just going to paint on a little carrot nose. Now, using the back side of our paintbrush and some black acrylic paint, we're going to use the same technique and paint a mouth on our snowman. Then I repeated this step for 4 additional snowmans. So I didn't have any mini pom-poms in my stash, so I thought, what could I use to make some pom-poms? And I saw my yarn over in my stash, and I thought, well, this might work really well. So we're just going to cut them out into little pieces about the size of a tater tot. And once we get the 5 pieces cut, we're just going to add some hot glue to the top of each one of the hats and apply one of those small pieces of yarn. Now that we have our snowman complete, let's grab some beads and let's put together our garland. And so I'm doing a combination of different beads. Most of these I got at the Dollar Tree, the white ones and the black ones, but the silver ones I believe I got on Amazon, and they're linked in my Amazon store below. And I'm going to use some really thin twine to attach everything. And we're doing a pattern of white, black, white, silver, white, but you can do whatever pattern you'd like. And we're just going to string our little snowman in between each one of these patterns. And now that we have everything strung on our garland, I wanted to go ahead and make some tassels for either side of our garland. So we're going to use that macrame rope again, and we're just going to wrap it, and I used my hands for this, but you could use a piece of cardboard. I wrapped it around 10 times, and then I'm just going to tie a little knot around the top there. I then take the rope and just kind of continue wrapping that around and just hide the knot, and then I just tuck the rope underneath itself so that it just stays in place and everything looks great. And you can cut off any extra, and then we just cut the bottom pieces off so it looks like a little tassel on the bottom. Now for that top loop of our tassel, I grabbed a paintbrush and I'm just going to stick that through so it kind of holds everything in place. And since this is macrame rope, I did want to kind of comb out the pieces of rope on the bottom part of this tassel. So to do that, you untwist everything, and then once everything is untwisted, I use just a regular comb and I just comb everything through. Once you have everything combed out the way you like, I just trim the bottom just to give it a little haircut to make everything look nice. So to attach the garland to the tassel, I tie this string from the garland to the paintbrush, and then I'm going to use the paintbrush as a needle and just pull everything right through. And then you can just tie a knot at the end. Then repeat and do this for the other side of your garland. And look at how adorable these snowmen turned out. They'll be perfect for your mantle or on a tiered tray. Craft number 3. So I found these adorable little hats at the Dollar Tree, and they were for scarecrows, but I thought these would make a wonderful top hat for a snowman. So we're going to add that to a skewer so it's easier for us to paint and remove any embellishments off of the hat. And once everything is ready and prepped, we'll go ahead and use some black acrylic paint, and this is Folk Art in the color Licorice. And I'm just going to paint this hat, and it does take about 2 coats to completely coat the hat. And I find having skewers in your craft room is a great little tool to have. I reuse them after I've used them before, so that's why you see some other color paints on the skewer there itself. So our next step here is I found this small bead in my bead collection, and it looks like a carrot to me. So I'm going to paint it with my Waverly chalk paint in the color Pumpkin. And it took me 3 or 4 coats to get a really nice orange on this. And I used the skewer again just to make it a little bit easier for me to paint. Now I grabbed this ribbon from Walmart last year, and I absolutely love their ribbon, so definitely check those out. And I just cut that to 9 inches. And we're going to use that as our scarf. Now let's work on our top hat. Next, we're going to grab some red ribbon, and I'm just going to add that around the edge of the little hat. And we're going to use some hot glue to hot glue that into place. And I'll trim any of that excess ribbon right off. And where the seam is for that ribbon, I'm going to add a few embellishments. So if you're like me, you probably have a whole bunch of picks that have little pieces clipped off of it that you've been using for multiple things. So I clipped off a little piece of greenery, and I'm just going to hot glue that right on the seam of the ribbon that I put onto this hat. And next I had some red berries, and I'm just cutting a little cluster of 3 or 4 of them, and I'm going to add that right over the top of that greenery. And I think this makes the hat look really nice. Now let's put our snowman together. It was great to use the skewer on the hat because it gave us a hole to put the top of the hat onto our little tree. And this is one of those bottle brush trees from Dollar Tree that has the 3 little layers. Next we'll add our scarf. And I didn't even have to hot glue it. It stuck onto the bottle brush really nice, so it worked out perfect. Next we'll hot glue the nose and the 2 eyes, and then we're going to have a cute Mr. Snowman. Isn't he cute? I love how this turned out. And if you're loving these snowman crafts, please hit that subscribe button below so you can see more. Craft number 4. For the snowman, we're going to start with a cutting board that I found at the Dollar Tree. And this is a mini cutting board, so it would be good for a shelf sitter or maybe a tiered tray. And we're going to start by just painting the front of this white with our Waverly chalk paint. To make sure our snowman was nice and bright, I did use 2 coats of our Waverly chalk paint. Now that our paint has dried, I'm going to grab a popsicle stick, and I was able to cut the edges off using a pair of scissors. And we're going to go ahead and set this aside on a paintable surface with our tray. Now let's grab some black paint, and we're going to paint the handle and the popsicle stick with that black acrylic paint. So now that our paint has dried, let's paint on our snowman's face. So I'm using some acrylic paint in the color Licorice, my pumpkin paint from Waverly Chalk, and a pink paint from Folk Art as well. Now using the back side of my paintbrush, I'm going to paint the eyes for our snowman. Once we got our snowman eyes, we're just going to go ahead and do the same technique and make his little mouth. Now let's go ahead and paint our little carrot nose. And once we get our nose just the way we want it, I'm going to use the pink paint, and with a cotton swab, I'm going to make some cute little rosy cheeks. Now let's finish our snowman's hat. We're going to hot glue the popsicle stick for the brim of the hat, and then right above it, we're going to add a little bit more hot glue and add a red ribbon. Now you can either trim any excess red ribbon, or I'm just going to glue mine to the back side of the hat. And for our last step, we're going to embellish our hat by using some greenery and hot gluing that to the rim of the hat and some little red berries. And doesn't our snowman look so adorable? Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. And if you'd like to see more content, just click on that video above. And don't forget, craft more, stress less.